only way to maintain a high-performing team is to have high standards. In response to some of the comments left on my previous video, where I talked about the fact that the worst thing you can do for high-performing teams is maintain low-performing individuals, i.e. if you have a high-performing team but you have some low performers, you should either help them become high performers or you should graciously move them out of the organization. And this brought up the idea that I have a manager or I have a colleague who does their job but they're an asshole. Or I have a manager or I have a colleague who is a really lovely person to be around but they don't actually do any work. And this highlights the idea that performance is a complicated concept to define. The framework that I've always used when looking at performance for employees, and that includes managers, is what I refer to as OOBA. O stands for outputs and outcomes, and B and A stands for behavior and attitude. So there's 4 dimensions here, or 2 groups, if you will. The outputs and outcomes refer to the fact that you either do or do not do the volume of work that you should be doing, and that the work that you do either does or does not achieve the results that are necessary. From a behavior and attitude standpoint, this is how you do your work. So you either are or are not positively contributing to company culture. You either do or do not uphold the values and behavioral standards the organization has set. And so in a simple sense, if you deliver your outputs and outcomes, but you do not have good behaviors and attitudes, you're not performing. If you have great behavior and a great attitude, but you're not delivering your outputs and outcomes, you're also not performing. And so in a simple sense, to actually be a good performer is a decently high bar. You should roughly do the amount of work that you are assigned. You should roughly deliver the results from that work that was roughly assigned. And whilst you're doing that work, you should be exhibiting behaviors and standards that are aligned to the organizations throughout that period. And so the greatness about this framework is that it allows really simple conversations to happen when people talk about performance. You either do or don't deliver the value and the results that you're tasked with doing, and you either do or don't show up in a way that's positive for the organization. And so for those of you that have seen my previous post, or for those of you that have challenges with this in your organization, again, I bring you to the same situation. If you're a manager and you have employees that are high performing but have terrible attitudes, you either have to fix that attitude or get rid of them. If you have employees that have a great attitude but have low performance, you have to fix that performance or get rid of them. And the only way to maintain a high performing team is to have high standards for performance. And so these standards, outputs, outcomes, behavior, and attitude, is a framework for maintaining and identifying standards in people in your team.